Hi there, I'm Jim Bradley. I write um, a blog called Under the Castor Oil Tree, and I've been sharing them on YouTube for people who to listen to rather than read. So I've got a few things this week that I'd like to share. The first one was from last Tuesday, and it says, if you haven't heard about this yet, Stephen Gutierrez, a 32-year-old lawyer, was pulled over for not having a working headlight. The police was just going to tell him to get it fixed when he saw a bulge under Stephen's shirt. The officer asked him about it, and Stephen blurted out, "It's cocaine." That was much worse than a headlight that was burned out. That same lawyer who 3 years ago was defending a man who accused of arson on his car to collect the insurance, Stephen was explaining to the jury that the fire could have been spontaneous combustion when suddenly Stephen's pants caught on fire. He rushed from the courtroom and later blamed it on a faulty battery in his e-cigarette. But the Bar Association found him guilty of doing the fire on purpose to try to sway the jury about his spontaneous combustion defense of his client. Poor Stephen, not a good lawyer or a good liar. This was from Monday. It's called the Only Reason. The only reason I'm glad my father is dead is that he didn't have to see what has happened to his beloved Republican Party. All the state parties, groups condemning those who voted against the former president in impeachment proceeding is terrifying. Whatever happened to the party my father loved so much? The party of Eisenhower and Reagan, a party of integrity and openness to disagreement. I wish he were here with me, my father long dead, except for what he would feel about the party of his lifetime. This one's called Enough Ice. I just checked on the Weather Channel for Cheshire for the next 10 days. Snow on Thursday, then next Monday, the high is 40, and the high each day until the end of the month remains in the 40s. Lord help us. There's so much ice. Icicles everywhere, icy roads and sidewalks, ice on our back deck. Enough with the ice. I'm ready for spring. I'll never complain about the heat again. This was a sermon for the last Sunday before Lent, the last Sunday in Epiphany. And it is from 2001. It's called Packing for the Journey. The hardest part of any journey is not the beginning or the middle or the end. The hardest part of any journey is before the beginning. Someone has to pack the bags. We are at that awkward before the beginning part of the long journey of Lent. This Sunday is the last Sunday after the Epiphany. On Shrove Tuesday, we'll have a farewell dinner, and Ash Wednesday we'll set off on our journey. Today is the hardest part. Today we have to pack the bags. The gospel reading for this last Sunday before Lent is always the story of Jesus' transfiguration. The transfiguration event takes place on a mountaintop, far above the concerns and needs of the valley below. Jesus is joined miraculously by Moses and Elijah, who represent the law and the prophets, the gathering of the core of Judaism. And what were they talking about? Moses and Elijah and Jesus. Luke tells us they were speaking of his departure, which he was about to accomplish at Jerusalem. Jesus is on the mountaintop before the beginning of his journey to Jerusalem and the cross. Moses and Elijah are helping Jesus pack his bags. The disciples are not ready to go to Jerusalem. They are full of anxiety about what lies ahead. Jesus has been hinting that betrayal and suffering await him in Jerusalem. The disciples don't want to go. Master, Peter says, it is good for us to be here. Let us make 3 dwellings, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah. Peter didn't understand. A cloud overshadows the disciples. Some of the fog that occasions mountaintops, and they are terrified. Their fear was well founded. Before the journey's end, they would face many dangers. No wonder they wanted to stay up on the mountain. But Jesus is ready. His bags are packed, and he's ready to go. Today, on this Sunday, we are baptizing 3 children. Jacob, Austin, and Tiffany are setting out on their journey of life. Before they depart, we will help them pack their bags. Through water and oil, we proclaim that they are loved by God and marked as Christ's own forever. That will go with them through the years and the decades ahead. Whatever dragons they must pass, whatever dangers they encounter, whatever fears may grip them, they will not travel alone. God goes with them. Even when they feel they are by themselves, God goes with them. Even when those who love cannot protect them, God goes with them. Even when they experience life as a desert filled with wild beasts, God goes with them. Today we will pack their bags full of the love of God and the grace of Christ. They're almost ready to go. As Jacob and Austin and Tiffany depart, so must we. We will gather around the table on the mountaintop and be refreshed by the life of God. But we cannot stay here. The world waits for us outside those doors. It is sometimes frightening, confusing, lonely world. But it is the world God loves, and we do not journey alone. The wildness of Lent awaits our footfalls. We must pack our bags with love and face the wild beasts there. It is almost time. Soon we must depart. But before then, some bread and some wine to remind us that we're never alone. Some water and some oil to remind us we are marked as Christ's own forever. This is the getting ready time. This is the time before the beginning. This is the bag packing time. Then we'll be ready for where the road may lead us and what the journey will hold. When it's time to go, we'll be ready. We'll be ready. And still dealing with stuff that's out of my past, here's a Ash Wednesday suggestion for 2012. It's called A Modest Proposal, A Kinder, Gentler Lent. I think this was published in St. John's Parish newsletter. Years ago at a Waterbury staff meeting prior to Lent, I suggested we may consider a kinder, gentler Lent. The 2 other clergy were horrified at the suggestion. The 6 lay members of the staff thought it was a good idea. Ponder that. I'm not someone who responds well to guilt. I don't feel guilty about much of anything. And I certainly don't need to grovel in my unrighteousness. When I do something that hurts someone else, I genuinely try to apologize and ask forgiveness, and am humbled when I am forgiven. But I don't dwell on the bad stuff I do. I try to clean it up and move on. I don't dwell on the negative stuff of life. This Wednesday is Ash Wednesday, which always makes me think of the children's nursery rhyme. Ring around the rosy, pocket full of posies, ashes, ashes, we all fall down. Do you realize that harmless little rhyme that can be danced to with the kids falling down at the end and laughing is about the Black Plague? Apparently, one of the first signs of plague was a circular rose-colored irritant on the skin. Ring around the rosy. The pockets of the clothing of plague victims were filled with flowers to try to overcome the stench. Pocket full of posies. Finally, the undeniable truth that we are, after all, dust and ashes, and we will die. We will die. We all fall down. That's half of Ash Wednesday's wisdom. We will die. We will die. We are, after all, dust and ashes, and we will, each of us, all return to that state. I sometimes tremble when I administer the ashes on that day. Remember, my friend, I say, you are dust, and to dust you shall return. What solemn, sober, and grave words, and true ultimately. But that is only half of Ash Wednesday's wisdom. The other half comes when we are called to the table to receive the body and blood of Christ. We are called to the table to remember also that we are shining children of God, just a little lower of the angels, created in the image and likeness of God. I have a big old raincoat. Ash Wednesday reminds me of that coat. My coat has two deep pockets. On Ash Wednesday, one is filled with ashes, dust, humus, dirt. That is part of who I am, who you are. That's what makes me want to have a kinder, gentler Lent. That's who we are too, not just dust and ashes and guilt and sinfulness. We are the very children of God, loved to death by God, loved to life by God, loved and loved and loved again. Join your congregational family on Ash Wednesday to be reminded to remember who we are. Dust and ashes, surely, not a doubt about it, but glittering, shining, wondrous, much loved creatures as well, invited to the supper of the Lamb, a special spot reserved at the table, the best spot of all, blindingly loved and honored and accepted and included. Let's remember that part during Lent instead of beating ourselves up. Let's remember how loved and cared for we are. Let's remember God is the one who loves us best of all, just as we are, just as we are created. That's what I want to be reminded of this Lent, how much God loves each of us and all of us. Join me in pondering that love, that wonderful, incomprehensible love. Happy Lent. Is that a crazy thing to say? Probably, but I say it nonetheless. Happy Lent. This last one is more on the political than the religious side. It's called A Tale of Two Elected Leaders. While Ted Cruz, the Republican senator from Texas, was in Cancun, Congresswoman AOC asked her Twitter followers to donate to various Texas charities. They contributed $2 million in 24 hours. Now it's up to $4 million. And she went to Texas to volunteer in a food bank. And AOC is from New York. It's amazing to compare how various folks represent us voters. Beto O'Rourke, who, if there's a God, will run against Cruz when he's up for re-election to the Senate, was manning a phone bank, calling elders in his state to see how they were managing, to see what help they needed. While the governor of Texas was blaming, of all people, AOC for the grid failure because she supports the Green New Deal, when it is actually because Texas hasn't upgraded their infrastructure and isn't connected on the grid to other states who could have sent them power. Texas is for Texas. Well, how's that working for you now, partners? I'm Jim Bradley. I'm glad you were here to share in these readings, and I hope to see you again. Wear a mask, get vaccinated as soon as you can. Keep social distance, wash your hands. Be safe, stay safe, and be well. Goodbye.